They say that we are all born the same and that we all die the same. It is, however, what we do as individuals in between the time that we are born and the time that we die that separates us from our fellow man. When we look out at the world and we see things maybe that no one else recognizes, and that we also take a look at our fellow man and do everything we can as individuals in our power to help our fellow man to achieve his goals and dreams as well as our own. I was always brought up with these principles, and it's always been my goal in life to look for things that stand out and to make things right for everyone. And that is what this story is about. And I'm not going to go into my other videos, so this is I'm going to start right from the beginning, from the very start. But first, I'm going to show you a little bit about myself, pictures I've taken, things I've seen. Some are not my photos I borrowed, but the vast majority of these are my photos taken over the last few years, and some are a little bit older, but most are more recent. Now, as far as life in itself, we have an ability to be aware of ourselves, which sets us apart from the animals. We are self-aware, and we know the difference between right and wrong. At least some of us do. And that's what this story's about. Someone who knew right from wrong, and they did the wrong thing, and they altered the course of someone else's life. Now, sometimes again, myself, I look out and I see things that are different, and that reach out and grab your attention, um, and it's just a matter of time before I think the world recognizes that things are not exactly as we think they are, and sometimes things are way more different than we think they are, and we don't perceive the things that are around us. And one of the things that we need to recognize is our fellow man again, and I'll go back to that point. Um, in no time in history, has it really been ever proven that that old saying about life not being fair for everyone, it's life isn't fair, has that ever been proven to be true except for by man? It is man who has reached out and failed to help his fellow man. It's man who has reached out and made life either good or bad for his fellow man. So we each as individuals need to take a look at ourselves and say, you know what? What is it about life that I can do that's going to make other people's lives better? And it's when people who don't do that, and it goes beyond greed. It's not just about greed. It's not just about, it's doing the right thing. And we all, I think, in some ways have the right thing in our heart, and we know the right and wrong things. But some people just don't seem to follow that moral compass, and they do whatever they want, and they don't care who it affects or how it affects other people. And then there's always that other side of the coin when there's people who are in a position where they're afraid of what they, to do what they should do, but for fear that it'll affect the standing of their own life as well. And I think that's a little bit of this one here and of my story. Um, like I said, I always see things. I see beauty in the world, and I try to share as much as I can with people. On the other hand, I like music. I like everything, just all kinds of music. I mean, I love everything in life. I've always been able to like see things, and it's hard to always catch the photo. That's the trick. Having a camera with you all the time now with the smartphones, it makes it a little easier. But it's just those moments in time when you sit back and you see things that are beyond the obvious. And the whole thing that happened to me in 1974 is just a symptom of the whole world, the way the world is. And I think the truth needs to come out. It's been hidden since 1974, and not hidden for me because I discovered the truth around 99. So if I was going to really start the story, I would start in 99 because I had forgotten everything that happened in 1974 until 1999 when my mother told the story. And then I began to remember, and then out of all irony, I came across the actual piece of evidence from that time that was put away, And I'm still kicking myself that I did not take that piece of paper because I didn't recognize what it was at the moment we looked at it, and now it's gone. And somehow, out of all the things that have disappeared of mine over the years, that is the one thing that I have really um, kicked myself for not remembering at that point. And the problem is, when my mother told that story and I began to remember, I didn't still put it all together, and it was still like a year later, and I was already moved here where I live now, and I was, kind of far away from where my mother lived, and all of our stuff was put away, and that piece of evidence was put away, and there was a couple other things that were put away that were still there that were fine, and there's no way it just disappeared. Someone had something to do with it, and I don't know if it was someone in my own family, and I really hope it doesn't end up being that. And I hope it was just this person used an FBI agent to find the evidence, because I was talking to two people on the phone who knew the location, maybe three, who knew the location of that paperwork and that evidence, and it is hard for me to think that any of them would have anything to do with it, and I really, really hope it doesn't end up that way, but I don't see anybody uh, doing really well, so I don't think that's the case. Um, there was only one person who knew that had something to gain from having it, and if if that had anything to do with their gain, they got shortchanged really bad. And I will say, because they're not doing well enough to justify what they gave away, what they had in their possession, and I'll get to that later. Anyway, all these photos and things that I see are just part of this magnificent world that God created around us. And whether you believe in God, that's your choice. Whether you want to call it the Big Bang, that's your choice. I don't believe that myself. And everything in my life has led me to believe the opposite is true. So the thing here is, most people have very limited view of the world, a very narrow perspective, just a shard, if you will, of life that they view the world from, and they have such an attitude that they know everything that they can't even. It's just like Einstein said. They're no longer able to even stand wrapped in awe at anything because they think they know everything, so there's nothing else for them to learn. And at that point, you're as good as dead, because just like Einstein said, you can't stand in awe of anything, then there's nothing else for you to learn. Then what is there in the world that's here for you? And then so many people are stuck in that mindset that they think, I know everything, so I can't teach you anything, or you can't teach me anything. And they have that attitude. They can't learn anything from anybody because they're so set in the mindset they already know everything. And it's absolutely not true. Everybody in this world has information that you probably don't know. And if you went around and learned from everybody, you would probably learn things you didn't know from everybody. And that's the whole thing. And my whole thing with my life is I've always gone back and read books and learned things. I love my dogs. I mean, I guess you can tell. And it's just a thing that you learn as you go in the world, and it's not. I know everything. You can't. Nobody knows everything. If you did, your mind would explode. It's kind of like the Krell in the Forbidden Planet movie. If anybody can understand that, and I think that's, if any one person knew everything God knew, I don't think they'd be able to handle it. And that's the whole thing. And it's just like that movie, The Forbidden Planet. You really, if you've never seen it, go back and watch the guy when he hooks himself to the Krell mind machine, and you'll understand. There's too much for anyone to know. And I personally, I believe that some of the ancient wonders of the world were put here by him, not by other men, and that's why nobody's ever explained exactly where they came from, and they don't have any proof of any of it. They don't know where it came from, and that's the truth. I like the wonders of the world. I like the universe. It's, to me, I mean, you look out and it's just, there's nothing that explains all of this. It's just not. You're just saying bang, and it was here. I just can't fathom that. And again, people who think again, like the atheists that know everything, I just don't think they understand. And here's with my story. It's about justice. I don't think I've ever seen anything like justice in life. And again, it's that old adage that everyone says, "Well, life isn't fair." What? Who said it had to be that way? No one said it had to be that way except man. Man is the one who's made life unfair and very hard. And the Bible even tells you that that's what man would do. Put not your faith in man. And that's why things go bad, because man is put in charge. And man decides what other men are going to do. Whose right is it to say, you know what, you had something I like, I'm taking it from you? That's the heart of socialism, and I don't understand again how anyone can do that, and especially on top of actually telling the person that they were going to do something for them. So then they're not of that, they're committing fraud, whether it was by verbal or written. But in my case, it was a verbal contract. He said, "I'm going to make you rich and famous." Now, me and myself and I have heroes in life, maybe not the same heroes as you. If I was to go back in time, there are certain people I'd love to meet, and I don't have to tell you who I'm talking about, because if you're a Christian, you'll understand. I'd love to meet them, and I'll tell you what, there's things that I don't even know what questions I would have to ask. You know what I'm saying? But I do believe, and that's the whole thing, because I think he would know what to say to me, and I wouldn't have to say anything. And again, my favorite heroes lived right here on this earth, and the evidence has been here, and everyone hides it. And when the evidence is found, it gets swept under a rock, and literally, and it's just a thing. We all know right from wrong, and in every case in history, when man did the wrong thing, he was punished for it. And then how do you, that if that's where your idea of being treated unfairly comes from, you had no one to blame but yourself. But it's a completely different story when someone was taken advantage of, when someone was, you know, like in my case, I was a kid when this happened, so I'm going to get to that story here in a few minutes. I just wanted you to see a little bit about my life and understand where I'm coming from. I would never accuse anyone of doing something falsely, because even my faith in God, has not always been the way it should have been, and I haven't gone to church every Sunday, but I've always had that knowledge that whatever I do, I'm going to be punished for. So I wouldn't do. The Ten Commandments have always been one of my rules of thumb. If I do wrong things, I at least try not to do those things. I try not to break those commandments, and there's some that I've never broken. And bearing false witness is one of them. I've never bore false witness against anyone. And this whole story, I'm telling you, is true. This is a little quote I've kind of sit back and waited, because I thought, oh boy, if you sit back and you read what this says, Thomas Jefferson even believed what I did, that may at some point justice would be served on man, and maybe none of us will be safe. And my story is sort of just a little small piece maybe of that whole thing, but it's still the truth nonetheless. And again, we're not here to decide the fate of other men, and it's not our business to take away from other people. I can tell you a big fish story, doesn't mean you'll believe it, but if I offer you the evidence, then you will. You understand? And again, like with my story, the evidence was stolen from me, and when I made my first videos, and if you ever get a chance to go back and look at them, you can certainly. But this is the movie, and I'm gonna go through the whole thing in this movie. And I'll tell you, like I said, more about myself. I cook. I'm like a chef, so I've been in the business for over 40 years. Um, some of it non-professionally, of course, but most of my experience has been over 30 years professionally in the business, and I can do anything, So as far as cooking goes. And I've had taken into other professions as well. So I mean, it's been over time that I've learned a lot, and cooking is my favorite thing to do. And I'd like to open a restaurant someday, but that may be here nor there. And in the meantime, I do what I can. My wife and I have another small side business. It doesn't make much money. We create little bottles and stuff, and we sold a few of them over the years, and it's been so slow. We have too much competition in that field. There's Etsy.com and all them, and mostly we showed up at a few craft shows, sold $40-$50 worth of stuff, and that was about it. And went to a couple, didn't sell anything, so it's just another business. But we take bottles and we melt them in a kiln, repurpose them. I put designs, patterns, and sometimes some of the bottles I have I've actually bought that way. This one was actually a pattern I put on it, and I have plates that I lay the bottles on, and the designs come out. The fish is actually already a bottle shaped like a fish. There's actually a wine that comes in, a specific kind of Italian wine that comes in that bottle. And I actually went and found more of them that didn't have wine in them, and from a show or craft or store, sorry. But as you can see, I've melted a lot, and I still have a lot. So um, always willing to sell them. But again, it's just a question of finding things to do with your time. And again, I've always tried to be creative and try to do things. And here's my kiln that I melt the bottles in, and I can only do bottles that are so big. There's bottles out there actually won't fit in there, believe it or not. And anyway, I also got to do a little bit of silversmithing. I actually crafted this, and this was actually from a dream I used to have. So I don't know what it was all about, but I remembered it and I created it in real time. Smelted some silver and used stuffed clay, old world style of crafting, and it's still kind of rough, needs to be smooth, but hey, it still came out pretty good my first time. Um, anyway, again, I've been all around. I've been all over the United States, like to travel. Savannah, Georgia, Houston, Texas, Memphis, Tennessee, the Cape, our Outer Banks, just about everywhere, and this is Tybee Island Lighthouse in Savannah, and I used to live in Savannah when I was about 13, 12 years old, and enjoyed it, Savannah. I love Savannah. I love to live in that area too someday, maybe, if I could. My other place, a couple places I've been, lighthouses I've seen, Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, when I went to the Outer Banks. Again, it's a thing of seeing things. Man's creativity is always been fascinating to me, that man's been able to do things that he's been able to do, and some of the things that he's done have been, pretty awesome. This is Ocracoke Island. They say Captain Kidd or is it Cat Blackbeard's treasure? One of them might be hidden there somewhere. Maybe they say. Who knows? Anyway, and then dolphins. Love dolphins. I seen them playing with a jellyfish like it was a little ball. They were throwing it around, a mother and a baby, a cub. Anyway, he was tossing the little jellyfish all around. It was kind of funny. I'm sure the jellyfish didn't find it as funny, but anyway, it was kind of funny because he was just a young little pup, Anyway, as I've said, I love to get around, travel, and I get to get back to the story. I've never held anything against him personally as a human being, other than the fact that he would do what he did, and that's what I don't understand. How do you steal from a 7-year-old a kid? And this is how he did it. And I'm going to go right into this. Um, when we were kids, we were playing pirates in my front yard on Riata Boulevard, and I'm going to start showing that here in a few minutes. Um, spooky place, the ocean at nighttime. um, I like it, and I think it's beautiful, but I don't want to be out in the nighttime, especially in the water. Um, Not without being on a boat, a big one. Anyway, my parents, um, my dad was living in Indiana, my mother was living in Kentucky. They met. Um, I pulled after I was born. I was born in 1966. I pulled a coffee percolator down on myself, and there I am. It's not long after I got out of the hospital. I was tied to a bed face down for almost a year and a half. Because I was burned over 50% of my body's second and third degree burns, and this is me right around the time that all of this took place. I lived on Riata Boulevard. We were playing pirates in my front yard, and this kid had come over. His name was Jack Hamburger, and as you can see here, let's stop this first. And if you look at the bottom where it says Riata Boulevard there, and if you look down at the bottom, it says Cordelia Payne. That was my friend Tara and Kelly Payne. They were there the day, and there's my dad Conrad Vincent, and Bell was Benjamin Bell. It was my friend Lisa's dad, Lisa Bell, and she was there the day this happened. There's our address, 5513. I'm going to show you several perspectives of this same map, 5513 Riata Boulevard, and I'm mapping the distance between mine and George Lucas's cousin's house. Okay, and this is what he told me, that he was George Lucas's cousin. At the time, I didn't know who George Lucas was, and I really didn't care. I was 7 years old, and it didn't strike a bell to me because I didn't. And now, of course, years later, 5707 was his house, and you can see that tan roof right there at the bottom, as opposed to mine at 5513. And again, I'll show you several perspectives. There's his backyard, my backyard. That's how far apart we were. It's 453 feet, according to Google Maps and all that. And I'll show you several perspectives, different maps and different from different companies and satellite images. And I'm going to show you some more later on in the video as well. And there you go, 5707 Jack Hamburger. Now, I'm not 100% sure that it was 5707. It may have been 5709, but I'm like 99% sure. So it's like that 1% that I could be wrong, that his name wasn't Jack Hamburger, but I think it was. And I remember thinking that his name was kind of strange, and I think I remember him saying his name was Jack. So Jack Hamburger, and that being a strange name, kind of fit. And I always thought that that's his house there with the brown roof. And I have other images again. I'll show you in my house. Was 5513 again. We were playing pirates in my front yard, and he was there. He was one of those kids in the neighborhood who kind of hung around even when you didn't want him to. He was kind of mean, and the first time we went over to his house, he actually hit me with a ball bat when my back was turned. I thought my brother did it, and I hit my brother, and I got into trouble with my father over that whole thing. Anyway, there's our houses from a high up image, and the school on the red one on the right was my school. That was Rangeland Elementary School, and that's how far we were from our elementary school. So there's again his house, mine's on Riata, his is on Robinwood Road, 5707 and 5513 respectively. I never hated the kid. I mean, he was mean. He hit me with a bat. I didn't figure it out till after he had almost killed me. We went to Florida shortly thereafter. I put this on a piece of paper, okay, and I put it in a document holder. That document holder disappeared out of my mother's stuff, and my brothers both have the exact same one. Our immunization records were in the exact same folder. Both of my brothers are right there together, and mine was right there together with them, and mine is missing. And this is the whole reason why. And I went into the story. where I didn't really remember what happened until 1999. All my records, medical records. So here I'm going to show you where I tried to get my medical records. But first, this is just a little immunization book that looked like mine that was kept in my document holder. It's the strangest thing, but when my medical records disappeared from a certain document holder, actually the whole document holder disappeared along with a piece of evidence, and I've been trying to get more copies of the medical records. Well, Norton Children's Hospital stopped carrying them, and they stopped carrying records from 1974. Excuse me, let me reword that. And so I started thinking about something. Do they still have immunization records? Because that day I would have probably gotten a tetanus shot. So I'm going to call and see what happens. Let me see if I can put this on speaker where I'll be able to record it. Yes. I was trying to get a hold of some records like last year, and the year that I had that I was trying to get hospital records from, they did not have anymore. But I had another question. If you have an immunization the same year, would they, or do you need to get me to the records? I don't know if you need to send me the records or not. But I'm not. All right. All right, thank you. All right. All righty, thank you. No problem. Mm-hmm.
Care for your child. Choosing the right pediatrician is important because he or she will be a major source of information.
Oh boy, this might be a minute.
Medical support. If you or someone in your family needs help finding a pediatrician, call 502-629-KIDS.
Assist other callers. Thank you. In order to meet your needs as quickly and efficiently as possible, please have the patient's name and date of birth ready. Thank you.
Sick and don't have the energy to get out of bed? Wondering about symptoms but can't get away from work? Well, sometimes life gets in the way of getting the care that you need. Luckily, Norton eCare is giving you another option to get expert care 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. See a Norton provider wherever you are by completing a video visit or e-visit. All you need for a Norton eCare video visit is a My Norton chart account and a computer with a webcam or mobile device with a camera.
Thank you for continuing to hold. Our agents are currently busy serving other patients and will be with you shortly.
Full-person promotion of health and wellness in faith communities. Call Norton Faith and Health Ministries.
So as I was recording that, I cut it off and went back and clipped it down. There was no point in leaving all of it on there because I only sat on wait for a long time, and only to find out that they did not carry immunizations that long either. They destroyed them as well. They did give me the number for Kentucky. I called the Kentucky Department of Health, which ended up taking me to the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, which took me to the Immunity Information Service. Sorry, I misquoted that. It's the Immunization Information Service. Immunization Information Service. That for Kentucky is kind of messed up. It's not working. I did contact somebody with the CDC, and they said, well, the records they had were only the ones that were sent to them by the hospital in recently because they had not started it or something. So I'm like, there's got to be somewhere where these records are stored, and I haven't given up on it yet, and I may eventually make another movie when I find those records. Since I really was hoping I could get that immunization information, because I guarantee you, like I said, that I got an immunization the day Jack Hamburger almost killed me in his backyard. And that's where I left off with the story earlier. I was talking, as I said, I talked to people on the phone, and the only way they could have known the location of that paper was had they been tapping my phone, because there was only those three people, my two brothers and my mother, and neither one of my brothers are wealthy right now, and neither is my mother. And I don't think anybody had anything to gain by selling me out and getting rid of getting something for the evidence. But not to say that there wasn't an opportunity for someone to do it, and they did it. And I hope they didn't. I really hope they didn't. But anyway, back to the original story. I was playing Pirates in my front yard, and I'm gonna dice in with some pictures here. Some pictures here, and do some splicing here. Splicing some pictures. I was in the front yard at 5513 playing Pirates, and that kid I told you about, the mean kid named Jack Hamburger, who had hit me in the head with a bat, and then I thought my brother did it. I didn't figure that out till after he'd almost killed me that day. And then I'll get into this story in a second. I just wanted to explain that Jake Lloyd, who played as young Anakin Skywalker, looked a lot like Jack Hamburger. It's kind of ironic, actually. Second, we were playing Pirates in the front yard, and then I said, I'm a Jedi Knight, I'm going to use the Force to defeat you, and everybody was like, and the funniest thing is I really started like crushing everybody on the sword play, and they were just like, what the heck, you know, they didn't know what was going on. My brother goes, what's a Jedi Knight? And I said, someone who uses the Force to fight evil. And the Force was the will of God, you know. So they never mentioned that in Star Wars. That's the one thing that I don't like about Star Wars, is he never mentions God and never mentions the will of God. And that's exactly what the Force is. So I won't go into any further than that. If you need anything else, you can get it from my other videos. And my brother said, well, maybe you're the evil one. So that same brother, David, he's my younger brother, was also the one when we moved to Florida a couple months later. I don't think it was a month later, maybe. Because my parents divorced in '73. They were still back and forth, and my father actually was at the house like a week later. After wait a minute, let's get back to the original story. So he heard me say Jedi Knights in the Force, and he went I guess he said something to George Lucas on the phone or something. Somehow George found out, because he was at my house every day, Jack Hamburger, and that's presuming that's who he was. But I'm just going to call him Jack Hamburger for now, because he could have been, like I said, the Freeman kid, and not Hamburger, but I think it was Jack Hamburger. So. And I have never seen any evidence to say that he is either Hamburger or Freeman. So that in itself should also be proof, because if somebody can go to the FBI and say, oh, look, this guy really is related to George Lucas, maybe he is telling the truth, you would know more than me, because right now, the only way I know is by what happened and what he took from me. So I've never seen any written evidence that either Freeman or Hamburger was related to George Lucas. And like I said, that's the only way I know, was by what happened and how he ended up with Jedi Knights in the Force, okay? So I go over to his house finally one day. Because he kept telling me that George Lucas was his cousin. And I was like, I asked my brother what a cousin was. He said, that's somebody who, like if you have a kid and I have a kid, David, because it's like, oh, okay, I get it now. And so I went over to his house. My brothers went with me. They were playing. I don't remember them going in the house or not. They may have. When I was talking to George on the phone, or his mom didn't want a bunch of people in the house or something. I don't remember. But I know my brothers were on the swing set when we were outside playing. So, so we go outside. And this is after. Oh, first I got on the phone with George. Let me back up the step here. I get on the phone with George. He's trying to find out what is that thing you were. I said, he was trying to find out about Jedi Knights, and he goes, who else knows about that? I didn't even think about that. Of course, I was 7 years old. I didn't realize I was being duped. You know. So I'm like, Jedi, yeah, you know, because I used to have dreams about angels and stuff a lot, and I don't want to get into that story. So we're just going to leave it at that. It was mine. It didn't come from George. I knew Jedi Knights in the Force. You got it from me. None of you would know it, and I mean it. None of you would know Jedi Knights in the Force if it wasn't for me. Okay? He took it from me. And he said, I'll make you rich and famous. He goes, what was that thing you were playing with my, I said, Jedi Knights in the Force? He goes, yeah, that. So, again, he took what he wanted, and then he never, ever, I don't know if he didn't ever plan on giving me nothing, or if he just decided he was never going to give me nothing to start with. He never planned, or he just changed his mind at some point and said, maybe I better not say anything. I don't know what. I don't know, but I'm not a mind reader. So, neither are any of you. And that's why I want to tell you right now, I don't care if you don't believe me. I'm telling the truth. And you're going to stand before St. Peter and find out. You can ask him yourself. You can ask God yourself when you meet him. Because he knows I'm telling the truth. I know I'm telling the truth. And God knows I'm telling the truth. And so does George Lucas. Sorry, I said God twice. But anyway, it's the point. I'm not trying to do anything here but get the truth to be known. And the truth, as they say, will set you free. Once I discovered the truth, like I said, in 1999, and this is how the story went in 99, the day he got me on the phone with George Lucas, we went out back in the backyard and we were playing. And I told you my brothers were on the swing set, and we were hanging upside down from the bars by our knees. I don't know if you ever learned to do that when you were kids, but we were hanging from the bar by our knees. And I got off, and I was running around playing whatever. And Jack had this piece of rebar buried in his yard. It was kind of bent over, so it was. If you had pulled it out of the ground, it would have probably been boomerang like that, So he was spinning it, in the ground. So he was spinning it, and like this, throwing it, and it would spin. And he goes, "Hey Troy, come here!" And I was running, and I had my mouth open. I was laughing. It went straight in my mouth, ripped my palate loose, and shoved it all the way back. I came off my feet, literally, blood sprayed out of my mouth. So I don't know if they can even find DNA in the backyard that was mine, but it's possible there's some there. But that's been since '74, so I don't know how much you would find. Anyway, that spot is they could probably dig up the yard and find where the rebar maybe was. But who knows? But I ran home. I jumped up, and he jumped back, looked surprised. I ran home. My mother was sitting with a Tupperware lady, wouldn't pay attention no matter what I said. Like, Mom. She was like occupied. So we had these Tinker Toys, and my father even made Tinker Toys. So we had all kinds of Tinker Toys and stuff. So there was a Tinker Toy stick, the actual stick, and I went like this. Felt the roof of my mouth. There was a hole. I could feel the hole. When I pulled the stick out, it was blood all over it. So I turned to walk towards the bathroom, and I fell. And my mother thought I fell on that stick. And that's the story she has thought. She's been telling that story forever. That's the story she started telling in '99. I said, that's not what happened. So she thought that I fell on that Tinker Toy. That's not what happened. I was in Jack Hemberg's backyard, and he pointed rebar at my face. That's what happened. I didn't know the name of rebar, too. When I was trying to tell my parents, I was like, no, stick. So they're thinking, yeah, he's seeing the stick. Yeah. They didn't know what I was trying to say. And they were going through so much with their fighting, the divorce, and everything going on around us, that they really it just got past them. They didn't realize what was happening right under their nose. So... They get me to the hospital, and that's what else I want to do, because I'm going to do that right while I'm sitting here talking to you. So they get me to the hospital, and they told my parents that I'd have gone a hair further, it would have killed me. A hair further. He almost killed me. So then nobody would have known about Jedi Knights in the Force. Nobody would have known George Lucas took it from a 7-year-old. And as a matter of fact, all this stuff, because of our life was like chaos when we were growing up, so we really never had a lot of solid, we didn't have a solid upbringing because we were moving too much. But now when we stayed with my father, there were times when my mother wouldn't keep us. We'd go to my father's. He was more stable. He made us go to school. He made us do chores. He did, he was very, very good about stuff like that. My father is a good man. So so what he tried to do was get us to be, respectful people, and that's the way he was always, he taught us all to learn, and that's the biggest thing in life is to learn. We go through every day in life and we learn more and more and more, and that's the thing. You got to learn. You can't just be one of those people who think they know everything, because it just doesn't work like that. So anyway,
head north on Somerset Court toward Woodbury Lane, then turn right onto Woodbury Lane.
okay, so then I'm trying to figure out how to set up my other one lets me set up directions from one place to another. I'm going to do that while I'm standing here. Anyway, let me pause this for just a minute here. Okay, that took a little bit of finagling here to figure that out. Now, from where I lived, let me show you, so I can get this to focus. Yeah, why not? Here. From 5513 Riata Boulevard to downtown Louisville, I think it used to be 20 minutes, and now it's 15. I'm not going to swear, but so there's a reason behind this. Oh, it's backwards, isn't it? The writing's backwards because I got the camera flipped around. iPads are funny like that. Anyway, things appear backwards. From where I lived, this is why I want to get the medical record, and I've said it before. If I was at the hospital, now you seen it said 15 minutes, okay? If I was at the hospital at 3:45, that means, considering maybe a couple minutes for me to run to my house, from Jack Hamburgers, probably not even a minute or around, because we're only 453 feet apart, maybe a little about a minute, a couple minutes. Before my parents took me to the hospital, I'd give them, maybe give it 5 minutes from the time I was injured before I was on my way. So 20 minutes before that. So if I was at the hospital, say at 3:50 p.m., back up 20 minutes around 3:30, whether it was Jack Hamburger or somebody Freeman, and you could get them phone records, you could see that George Lucas called him or he called George Lucas at that time because I was there. But I'm missing something here, actually, because we played in the backyard for about 10 minutes. So I'm at 10, maybe 10 minutes. I think it was about 10 minutes. So if I was at the hospital at 3:50, back up 20 minutes between my run and them finally getting me to the hospital. So 20 minutes for me to get home, and then them take me to the hospital, and 15 minutes to get there, 20 minutes back, and then maybe we played 10 minutes, so back up at like a half an hour. So again, if I was at hospital 3:50, back up a half an hour, 3:20, there would be calls from George Lucas or from Jack to George Lucas. I don't remember if he called him or he called George or George called him when I was there. But you'll have records of his phone calls to Jack Hamburger's house, or unless it was Freeman, like I said. But I think it was Jack, and I'm going to stick to that. So I wouldn't know this, and I still have never seen any evidence that this kid was George Lucas's cousin. So if anybody with the FBI sees this, and you can say, well, here, let me go look. And you go look and you see, then you're still going to know more than I do about the relationship, because he was related to somebody in that Freeman house or somebody in Hamburger house. And I still think it was Jack Hamburger. So that's where I'm sticking with, because that's what I think. And I think he was Jack Hamburger was his cousin. And again, you can prove this whole thing if you go look in records, and I'm sure you probably already know if you haven't done it and you're with FBI or somebody. But I don't know if I trust the FBI, because again, when I lived in Bedford, Ohio, he tried to have me arrested because this is 2000. This was like 20 years ago almost, or 2000. This is 2018, going on 2019. Yeah, it's almost 20 years ago. So I started writing letters to George Lucas saying, hey, you remember me, you got Shadow Knights in the Forest, you're going to make me rich and famous. He didn't respond. So, I kept sending letters to different, like Lucasfilm, what was the other one? Industrial Light and Magic, a few different ones. I was sending, finally got a letter back from one saying, oh, he got to cut it. He denies anything. So then I finally got one that was in the meantime, they sent this guy to my house. Now listen to this. He comes to my house. He's like a Richard Dreyfuss looking fool. Anyway, he's supposedly just looking for this lady who used to live in the house, or this is an apartment I lived in off Turney Road in Bedford, Ohio. So he comes looking for this lady. He said she was a witness to an accident and that he was looking for her. And he said her name, and he had to have known something because I used to get her mail. I know she lived there, so how did he know that she used to live there? So obviously he's got, access to some kind of information somewhere. So then I continued to write. I've been writing letters. Of course, a couple times I got mad, and I never threatened him. Of course, that could get you into serious trouble. But I was kind of like, wishful thinking. Quick summarization. This kid, Jack Hamburger, and I've said this in my other videos, you can go back and look. This is almost another piece of proof evidence for you. That I knew he didn't live there forever. And here's a little piece of proof. Here's okay, you can't read it backwards. I'll use the other forward camera in a minute, and then I'll explain. Quick summarization. He moved in. He was mean to us. We played in his back. My brothers didn't like him. They said, he's your friend, kind of like that kind of thing. So, Jack Hamburger, he hit me in the back of the head with a bat. I thought my brother did it. I hurt and hit my brother. Got into trouble over that. We didn't really like to play with him, but I was in my front yard. He was one of those kids who would come and hang around even when you didn't really kind of want him around, He came into our front yard. We were playing Pirates. I said, I'm a Jedi Knight. I'm used the Force to defeat you. He heard that. He told his cousin, George Lucas, so he was at my house like every other day trying to get me to come to his house and get on the phone with his cousin, George Lucas. Okay, so at that point, I'd asked my brother, I said, what's a cousin? Because even though I had a lot of cousins, I didn't really understand the concept of what a cousin was. My brother said, well, if I have a kid and you have a kid, they would be cousins, I said, to each other. So I said, okay, then I understood what a cousin was. And I do remember that specifically. Then I finally did go over his house. And the day I went over, my brothers were over there too. So I don't remember if they went into the house with me when I got on the phone with George Lucas. And he told me, I wish they would remember, I really do. My younger brother remembers me saying Jedi Knights in the Force. And he thought it was stupid. And in the front yard, when I said, I'm a Jedi Knight, I'm using the Force, when we were playing Pirates, he said, maybe, and they go, what is the Force? What is the Jedi Knight? I said, somebody uses the Force to fight evil, and they go, maybe you're the evil one. He remembers that, and then when we moved to Florida, again, he remembers me saying Jedi Knight, because I thought of it, and I went in the house, I was like, I wonder if that kid's cousin's going, because this was like a month later or something, maybe a couple months later. I went into the house and put it on a piece of paper, and that's the piece of evidence you'll see. Sorry. So anyway, that is the piece of evidence that I put into that sleeve, and that was created in Florida in 1974. That's still 3 years before Star Wars came out. Again, and I had told you in the other videos, if anybody ever watched them, that he didn't live there that long. He wasn't like there from the beginning. And I'll show you again in the Suburban Directory, because these copies I had to pay the librarian, and I'll show you even the documents where I paid the librarian like $10 to look up copies, and the ones I got were too far back and he wasn't in them. Okay, and also on top of that, when I first started looking for him, I really didn't know his name was Jack Hamburger. Okay, I was looking for somebody named Lucas, and all these, if you look at them, they all say Lucas at top. I was looking for somebody named Lucas, and there was nobody named Lucas on that address. Okay, so then I turned around and I paid again. Another $10 to get more copies. And this time, I've got Jack Hamburger at 5707 Robin Wood Road. See? And I've got a bunch of those. And I know that's backwards, so I'm going to go back over this in a minute. So anyway, back to the summary. I go to his house. I get on the phone with George Lucas. He tries to find out who knows all about Jedi Knights and the Force. promises to make me rich and famous, and that was the end of that. He got what he wanted, and that was the end of it, because he never, I don't remember, he asked me where I'd heard it from, and I told him it was dreams and stuff, but my dreams were more than just dreams, because I had a lot of problems when I was younger, because I almost died a few times, you know, because I was burned severely. I was actually at that time sort of still semi-handicapped because I had pulled a percolator down on myself when I was younger, and I had a hard time walking and stuff. So some things I couldn't do as much as normal kids could do, but I still did pretty good. But anyway, the whole thing is then we went outside in Jack Hamburger, and this is a part of the reason how I remembered all this. As we went into his backyard, and my brothers were playing on the swing, we were hanging by our knees from the swing set and stuff, upside down. Jack had a piece of rebar hanging from the, or sticking out of the ground, sorry. He had a piece of rebar sticking out of the ground. It was sort of bent, you know, and he was spinning it. And I ran, and he goes, "Come here, Troy." And I ran at him, and he pointed at my face. It went into my mouth. It ripped my palate loose. I came off my feet, blood sprayed all the way down the front of me and onto the ground, everywhere. He was like, and he looked like it freaked him out. He got scared. And I ran home. My mom was sitting with this lady. And I might be repeating myself here. I swear sometimes I do. She was sitting with this lady. She wouldn't pay attention, so I see a Tinker Toy stick on the ground. I pick up the Tinker Toy. I feel there's a hole. And I can't, there's nothing there. And I'm like, and I pull the stick out, it was covered with blood. So I turn towards the bathroom, and my mother's on this side of me. So from her perspective, I fell down on the ground. It's not in my mouth. See, it's beside my, she thought I fell on that Tinker Toy. And I didn't. And that's not what happened. I was in Jack Hamburger's backyard, and he almost killed me. And I didn't even know the word for rebar. So, again, I ran home, couldn't get her attention. Like I just, I don't know if I just showed y'all that and if I recorded it, but we timed it between 15 and 20 minutes to get downtown from where I lived, where Norton Children's Hospital was. So again, if it was like 3:45 when I got to the hospital, and it took 15 minutes to get there, so that would be back to 3:30. And if it took me 5 minutes to get home and get my parents to get me and take me to the hospital, because then she noticed when I was in the floor. So let's just say that was 5 minutes from the time I got injured in Jack's backyard till I got home, and then they finally took me to the hospital. So back it up 5 more minutes. That's like 3:25, right? So we might have played in the backyard maybe 10 minutes. So from the time he called till I got injured was 10 minutes, then you should be able to hit about 3:15. I'm just saying if that's the time I got to the hospital. That's why I need to find the hospital records. And they had to give me a tetanus shot, because usually when you have like open wounds from something, they usually give you a tetanus shot. And I was a kid. I'm sure they would have given me a tetanus shot unless I had just had one. I don't know. That shot should show up on immunization, but I can't find the immunization records. And usually they give you one, I think, anyway, if you get injured. And they had to see the rust. Even though the doctor was, because I remember my parents were telling him it was a Tinker Toy, and he was kind of looking like, huh? Because I don't think he believed them. I think he thought that they didn't know what they were talking about because there was rust. When I tasted the taste of rust and blood mixed, it was weird. It was like I swear it was like a green onion taste, like a strong, like irony green onion kind of taste. Anyway, so I don't think the doctor really believed him, and I wish I could have found somebody who was there that day at Children's Hospital. And I've tried to find people. I placed ads in the paper, you know. Another thing is Jack Hamburger stayed in that neighborhood for years. There had to have been some other kid that he talked to at some point who maybe knew this stuff before Star Wars came out. All this somebody knows something somewhere. There has to be somebody. I can't believe that nobody knew anything at all. And I was the only one that had the piece of paper. My brother remembers me saying it in Florida in 74, and he remembers it from Redux Boulevard, which I didn't live in West Palm Beach, Florida, except for when I was 7. So that's the same year, 74. Okay, so now I go in the house, I put it on paper. I even asked my mother how to spell Jedi. She don't remember. My older brother remembers me asking him how to spell night, because I said no, not like night like nighttime, but night like with the helmet. Night. He said Knight. So that's somewhere. It's got to be in his head. But he says he remembers. My older brother remembers me saying some kind of night. And he goes, I thought you said Loki night or something. No, I didn't know what Loki was then. I know who Loki is now, but I didn't know Loki then. And that's not what I said. And I remember, okay, that I do remember Jedi Knight. And I remember the Force. I remember what the Force was. And it was told to me, in whether you call it a dream or whatever, that it was the will of God. Okay, so the Force is the will of God. And to some of you, you may not know, but it's actually a real thing. And you're going to find out. You try to tell St. Peter it's not true, and you'll find out the hard way. Okay, now I'm going to go over this real quick with you too. And here's a conversation between my brother and I from, he's talking about 1974. I nearly forgot one thing. I was remembering things the other day about my childhood on Redux Boulevard, and I remembered something. We had an ice cream man. His name was Grandpa. We called him Grandpa. He wasn't really our grandpa. He kind of looked a little bit similar, I guess, to Colonel Sanders a little bit. Strangely enough. I don't think he had the beard, though. But he had white hair. He always made these great rainbow snow cones. And I remember sometimes getting the little screw balls had the little gumball in the tip. The ice creams with the gumball in the tip. Anyway, I'm going to put a picture right here of the truck. He was very friendly, and I was telling him the story about Jack, and this was after what happened. And then one thing I forgot to mention also, and I'm going to show you the truck here 1 second, and then I'll continue to tell you about this ice cream man. When I got out of the hospital, I asked my brother if he was the one to hit me with a bat that day, and he said, no, you hit me with a bat. I said, no, somebody hit me with a bat, and I thought you did it, and I hit you. So I got into trouble over that, and it was at that point that I figured out Jack Hamburger was the one who hit me with the bat, and he was a mean kid, and I didn't realize he hit me with a bat. Then he almost killed me with a rebar. He wasn't a very nice kid, and I know somebody in that neighborhood who probably knows who Jack Hamburger is. And I'm probably not the only one who had bad experiences with him. And there may be even somebody, if he was friends with anybody at all, that he didn't almost kill or beat up with something, that may have heard him say Jedi Knight at some point before Star Wars came out, because he got it from me already at that point. Okay? So then, like I said, with Grandpa, I told him, I got out of the hospital. I talked to my brother. I had seen him a couple days later, standing down on the street corner, and I swear I picked up the biggest rock I could find in my driveway, and I threw it. I'm like, you seen the maps, 453 feet from my house to his, and we're almost like exactly the same distance. So that's 200 around 200 and some feet. I threw that rock and hit him dead in the top of his head and busted his head. Well, his parents threatened to call the police, so that was one of the days I guess my father had come back in town, and while him and my mother were, like I told you, they were in and out at that point, because they were divorced already in 73. So he took me over there, made me apologize to the kid on his front porch after he'd almost killed me, and I was trying to say, hey, I didn't know the word for E-bar. I still never did. Took me, and that was a funny thing, because my father took us to see Star Wars a few years. The next year, after we went to Florida, we came back from Florida. And Florida is where I took and wrote Jedi Knights and drew the picture of the car, because my father gave this Cadillac to my mother that he had rebuilt because it was a lot of problems, and he almost welded this car right back together almost entirely. So he rebuilds this car. We called it the Batmobile because it was a black Cadillac, and that's what was supposed to be the picture on that I drew. It was also, you see now, what you seen was a mock-up. It wasn't the real one because the real one got stolen. But I remember in 1999, as I told you, my mother told the story about me falling on a tinker toy, and I was like, no, that's not what happened. And I said, I was in that kid's backyard, and he pointed a piece of rebar. She didn't know what I was talking about. Because this whole story's been in the back of my mind since I was a kid, since 1974. So I didn't even remember it all. But it all came back to me, see? And then I started remembering, and then we're in her paperwork one day, and here I pull out this piece of paper that says Jedi Knights in the Force, and there's the car. It was supposed to be the Batmobile, the black Cadillac that my father had given my mother, and we had it in Florida. Okay? So I remembered all this stuff, and it started coming back to me, and I told my brother, I said, I think George Lucas robbed me. And he goes, I don't know, George Lucas didn't rob you. So he's always been sort of the pessimist, you know. But again, here, let me go over this paperwork with you, and I'm going to show you some of it here real quick. And here, I'm going to flip the camera around. See, it won't let me do it without, I'm going to have to stop it. Okay, so here we go. Sorry, I have a very one-track mind, so I bounce back around a little bit. Again, with the FBI agent, like I said, the first time he came, I didn't know he was with the FBI. He pretended to be looking for another lady, felt me out, kind of got an idea of what kind of person I was. He didn't say anything. I'd written more letters to George Lucas, and he finally came back after I'd gotten a certified letter. A certified letter from George Lucas, which ironically looks like just like another one I got in the early 90s, and I'll tell you about that later in another show. Actually, there's another video I have that talks about it. It's called It Gets Worse 2.0. You can go back and look at it later. But he categorically denies that he stole Jedi Knights in the Force from me. Yeah. Well, I know he did. God knows he did, and he knows he did. And he stole the evidence. So again, that's why my point was about Bob Frederick. And I'll show you his name again, just to show you that they tried to have me arrested, and I didn't just make that up. They tried to have me arrested by the Bedford Police Department for writing those letters, and none of them were really threatening. Although I found out he got in a car wreck one time, so I kind of hinted about getting in another wreck or something. Maybe something should have struck a chord with him somewhere, that he should have known better than what he did. But anyway, looky here. There's Bob Frederick's name right here. He says he's a private investigator for George Lucas, and he came to the police station. The police suggested that I get a lawyer. Don't write any more letters to George Lucas. And I did. I quit writing him. So I didn't write any more letters to him. The whole fact of the matter with all that is that nobody wants to believe that George Lucas stole Jedi Knights in the Force from a 7-year-old kid. Nobody wants to believe it. And I'll show you. I mean, oh, sorry. This is from when I asked I had to find the information about how to write the librarian and find out how to apply for the and see, I paid for each one of these when I got information. This was the one where I finally did get his name and everything this was the second time. The first time, when I went looking again, I was looking for somebody named Lucas. I didn't realize his name wasn't Lucas at that point. And again, that should show is more proof that I did. The only reason I knew the name Lucas was because of what was taken from me. I didn't know his name per se exactly, and I still don't. I mean, I still don't know his name is Jack Hamburger. If it is, I will be shocked and I'll be glad, because that's what I think it is. So, again, I applied for information, and this was the original first documentation I got from the Louisville Suburban Directory, and I'm going to this real quick. See, and it's actually 2 pieces. I put marks so I could show you where to put it together at. But anyway, then I'll go to the next pages now and I'll show you what I was really looking for. See, the name Lucas. The name Lucas is on all these. Look. Lucas, see? Lucas. See, that's what I kept looking for. Lucas's. And I was like, he's got to be here somewhere. And I know he's on Robinwood Road. So finally, that's why the second time I asked for just the addresses for that area and the Robinwood Road and Rialto Drive area. So that's when I finally got the right information and found out his name wasn't Lucas. So let me go right back to it again. That's the first one I seen. Jack Hamburger, 5707 Robinwood Road. Again, here was the one from Rialto Boulevard. There's my father, Conrad Vincent. I don't know why I thought originally I couldn't try to. I was trying to find my friend Tara and Kelly Payne. So I had marked a few of them, but this is my best friend across the street, Lisa Bell. Her dad was Benjamin Bell, and her mother's name was Ginger Bell. But there we are, 5513, and I've been showing you the maps on there, so you can go back and look at those if you really want to. But I collected I didn't collect all this evidence for no reason. And again, when the Bedford police told me, they said it sounded like I have a case, I should take it up with the lawyers. I wrote lawyer after lawyer after lawyer, and this is what I got. They weren't interested in my case. They didn't care. Okay? I wrote magazines and newspapers. They didn't care. Oh, and guess who else I wrote? Yeah, he didn't care either. And you know who else didn't care? William Rehnquist of the Supreme Court. He was the Supreme Court, the head of the Supreme Court at the time. I wrote him, William Rehnquist. Nobody wanted to do anything. Nobody cared. Nobody believed me. But see, now there's several other evidences I have out there. Not just the fact that I kind of think that I put Jedi Knights on something else in West Palm Beach, Florida. I don't know that for sure, but I kind of keep thinking I was thinking I should, and I did. My mom was married to a guy named Mike McGrew at the time, or dating him, sorry. And after her and my father separated, and that's who we were living with in West Palm Beach, Florida. Mike McGrew. And I was in his house when I wrote Jedi Knights in the Force on that piece of paper. And again, and I'll show you the piece of paper because I actually don't have a copy of it, and that was just a mocked up one, so I just threw it away. And after I took pictures of it, because that wasn't even the real original one anyway. The real original one was stolen in my document holder. And anything else I am missing here? I even write books, man. Just, you know. I actually got some good reviews on my book too. But that's the whole thing. I'd rather be cooking and writing books and, you know, other things than what's going on in my life. And I certainly can do better things with my life than what I'm doing now. But I'm going to go over a quick summarization again, and then I'm going to conclude this movie. First, I was burned when I was a kid. I told you about that. We moved to Rialto Drive. I'm not sure. We moved there 72, 73, 74, maybe, somewhere in there. No, I think we were there before 74, because we were there before Jack Hamburger even moved in. Okay. Jack Hamburger moved in late 73 or early 74. And I'm starting to think, I was just thinking about something. Easter. It was Easter. So Easter was not long before this happened. So this may have been in April, I think of April of 1974. then Jack Hamburger hit me in the head with the bat not long right after Easter. And then it wasn't that long after that we were playing Pirates in the front yard. So I believe that it maybe still had been April. Because 1974, I looked it up. April, Easter was April the 14th, I think, is what I looked up earlier. Easter was April the 14th in 1974. So it wasn't long after that he hit me with the bat. And then we were playing Pirates in the front yard. And he came and listened and heard me say it. And then he started trying to get me to come over every day to his house. So it wasn't all that long. And then we were in Florida before summer even started. So it still had been springtime. So I think it was still April by the time we ended up in Florida, or maybe early May, because they took us out of school when we moved, literally, out of Rangeland. I left Rangeland and went straight to Florida. So Jack Hamburger Jr., like I said, I hit him in the head with a rock. Then I remember one of the last things that happened there was the ice cream man, Grandpa, that we call Grandpa, and I told him my concern about maybe that kid's stealing Jedi Knights in the Force, and I forgot about it at that point until I talked to the ice cream man. Then I went back to Florida, forgot about it when we moved to Florida. Sorry. Then I remembered it again, put it on paper. And then I didn't remember it again until 1977. We moved back from Florida after Mom and Mike McGrew separated. And Mom put us in foster homes. We were in foster homes in 1975. Most of 1975, I was in a foster home, unfortunately. Matter of fact, we went in the day after my birthday of 1974. My birthday is December the 30th, so the next day is New Year's Eve. So by that time, we were going in a foster home. It was literally days after, and I went into a foster home right after my birthday. That's a heck of a birthday present, isn't it? So most of 75, we were in a foster home. Then my dad finally came and took us out in 75, and after a little bit of a court battle and all, he came and took us out. In 1977, he took us to see the movie Star Wars. And I looked at Dad and I said, "Isn't that mine?" And he goes, "No, it's his." And I said, "Okay." That's the last time I remembered until 1999 when my mother started telling a story about me falling on a Tinker Toy. I'm like, I didn't fall on a Tinker Toy. I ran into a piece of rebar in Jack Hamburger's backyard. I didn't fall on a Tinker Toy. She didn't know what I was talking about. Because she didn't know. The truth is, she didn't know. I know. Anyway, I didn't collect all this paperwork on somebody for no reason. I don't look and search through life for people's life to destroy, and I wouldn't destroy anybody's life for no reason at all. And I certainly don't really want to destroy George Lucas's. I don't care to destroy his life. I just want him to tell the truth, okay? Would it kill him to tell the truth? That's what I want to know from all of y'all. I mean, if he told the truth, would you hate him? If he told you all that he stole Jedi Knights in the Force from a 7-year-old kid in 1974, would you hate him? Would you forgive him? I already have. So start thinking about that. Because if he does ever tell the truth, you are going to be, I've been attacked viciously by people who I've tried to tell. And it's bounced around as a joke, and I've been laughed at over it. But it's not funny. I would never tell the story to somebody if it wasn't true, and I certainly wouldn't try to destroy someone's life. I believe in that commandment, bearing false witness, and I wouldn't do it to anybody at all. And there's nobody in this world I hate that much that I would want to do that, and I really don't hate anybody. I really think everybody has differences, and we need to learn to understand each other's differences. And I do think some people need to learn in this world a little bit more, but I just one more quick example. This was something that came into my head. This is what that rebar went, how he was spinning it. It was stuck in the ground. I think they had been chaining a dog to it, and he was spinning it just like that. And then he pointed it at my face, and that was all she wrote. About killed me. And that's the whole reason I remember this story, was because my mother started telling me I fell on a tinker toy. That's not what happened. Okay, I ran home. They took me to the hospital. It almost killed me. They actually took hemostats, pulled my palate up, and glued it with this stuff. It was like super glue, but it made the whole roof of my mouth like a sheet of plastic. It was like slick, very slick plastic. Anyway, I had that even long months in Florida. When I was already in Florida, I still had that sheet of plastic on the roof of my mouth. And the best way I think about not paying attention to something like that is just to not pay attention to it, because if you feel it every day and you reach up with your tongue and you rub it across, it was kind of annoying. It just feels so weird. And anyway, like I said, when he did it and I tasted the blood, that's one of the memories that came back to me, was the taste of blood. Is very mixed with rust. Is a very oniony, kind of a wild onion, really nasty irony taste, and it's hard to explain. And I don't want any of you to go tasting blood and iron unless you've had your tetanus shot, and then you'd understand. Or maybe having part of my palate ripped loose at the same time had something to do with that. I don't know. But again, I'm not going to make stories up about somebody. I'm not going to make somebody look like a heel who didn't do anything wrong. I wouldn't do that. And nobody in this world owes me anything except that one man. That one man who's lied to you for almost 45 years now. As a matter of fact, April or early May, and I really think it was April. Could have been early May, but I think it's April of 1974 is when he stole Jedi Knights in the Force from me. His cousin Jack Hamburger, whether he's paying him off or he just don't remember either. It was a long time ago, but I mean, again, I wouldn't have remembered if my mother hadn't been telling me stories about falling on a tinker toy. Anyhow, I'm going to just conclude this movie and docu-movie, whatever you want to call it, because I wanted you to have a better chance to understand me and get to know that I'm not the kind of person who would go making up things about anybody. George Lucas stole Jedi Knights in the Force from me, and his cousin Jack Hamburger helped him. He knows it's true. I know it's true, and it's just a matter of time. I mean, something's got to give somewhere. I mean, even if the man down upstairs comes down himself and has to tell you, you're going to find out. And I'm sorry that you all liked Luke Skywalker and everything so great. I liked it, To be honest with you, I liked it until I remembered the truth, And again, like I said, I went and seen Star Wars. I've seen every Star Wars up until the Phantom Menace, and guess what happened right after that? 1999 happened right after that, and that's the year that I remembered. My mother told me the story about So that's the only reason I never paid to go see another Star Wars movie. I paid to see every single one up to that last one, and Phantom Menace, and that was the last one. And I don't like what they did with them. I don't like how they changed them. I think Disney destroyed Star Wars. I didn't like how they did it. I read some of the books when I was younger before I really remembered all that. Splinter in the Mind's Eye, and a few of them, and I like their stories a lot better than what Disney did to them. As far as I'm concerned, maybe Rogue One was fine, but as far as the rest of them, no, they destroyed them. So, regardless of whether you believe it now or not, people, you can not choose to not believe the truth, but you can't say that you weren't told, okay? Have a good night.